The world of solar financing has always been a unique and honestly sometimes kind of confusing place between widely varying loan terms, dealer fees, and confusing reamortization schedules. It's a place that, in a post solar tax credit world, may change a lot. So, in order to find out more about how solar financing works right now and what it might be in the future, we talked to one of our in house experts, Stosh Hess, our Western Region account manager.
I am really excited to be by our guest today. Financing has always been a super interesting place in solar. It's been a place of a lot of conversations, a lot of confusion, and it's going to be a place that probably changes a lot in a post ITC world. So, with all of that in mind, I am delighted to be joined here by Stosh Hess, our Western Region account manager at Solar Insure. Stosh, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you, Ryan, for having me.
Yeah, so Stosh is one of our in-house experts, especially when it comes to financing. He's got a long history in the solar financing realm. So Stosh, give the people just a little bit of an introduction to yourself and your history in both solar and the solar financing space.
Very cool. Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Again, my name is Stosh Hess. My entire career has been in the solar industry. My first exposure to solar was actually at my grandmother's off-grid cabin in upstate New York. And then in college, I got more involved in solar through a local nonprofit where groups of students like myself included raised over $100,000 to put solar on two local VFWs, or Veteran of Foreign Wars, at no cost to them. So we also had some cool opportunities like NABCEP training, hands-on installation in low to moderate income communities in Colorado. And so after school, I decided to continue my journey in solar into residential sales with a national installer, where I helped open new markets, utilized nearly all major lenders in the solar space, Mosaic, GoodLeap, or Lone Pal at the time, Dividend, Sunlight, and even some local credit unions. And then in 2021, I joined Solar Mosaic directly, and they're a fintech company focused on solar and home improvement financing. So working in that role over the past few years has definitely given me a front row seat to the evolution of the changing in solar financing, and of course, how recent changes to the ITC will continue to shape the industry. So after seeing all of these shifts, I felt inspired to join Solar Insure, of course, building that long-term sustainability and stability and trust back for homeowners and installers is where the real impact, I think, will be made moving forward.
Totally. And we're excited to have you on the team here. I know we've worked together actually previously when you were at Mosaic. So I was happy to see you join in. But I always love hearing people's backgrounds of how they got into solar, because much like your experience, a lot of times it starts when you're a lot younger and you didn't just like stumble into it. It's like you found a natural path of something you really enjoyed and then worked your way, through to it. So it's always really cool to hear those stories.
Yeah, thank you. That's what it felt like.
Yeah. So you talked about changes. You were front row seat to the changes that were going on. So what would you say, obviously you've probably seen a ton, but if you had to sum it up, what are the biggest changes that you think you've seen in the solar financing space?
Yeah, great question. I think for me, the biggest shift I saw personally really happened in late 2022. For years by this point, like solar loans were booming. Both 2021 and early 2022 were some of the fastest growing periods, at least in residential. Lending was growing right alongside that market, right? And so in 2024, when interest rates started to spike, solar lending was on the other side of that, right? For the following quarters. And some lenders were able to give a month's notice before making changes, others a couple of weeks, and like in some pretty extreme cases, adjustments happened overnight. And they weren't minor either. Rates were going up just so quickly that many installers weren't confident that the proposal that they were leaving for a client was priced correctly. So, of course, you can see how maybe that becomes a problem.
Yeah.
And, keep in mind, many installers work with like 2 to 4 lenders. So they had to track multiple rate sheets simultaneously just to understand like what the best offer was for their clients. Like, it's almost like a sort of flavor of the week from those quarters on. But with those rates moving so quickly, even just a small misstep could make that offer unprofitable for installers or just unaffordable to homeowners. So managing the finance fees was pretty much a competitive sport of organization.
Totally. Yeah, I remember selling during that time too. And like I had the exact problem that you just described, where it was we had 3 different lenders we worked with and the prices were changing so fast. Like I would sit at a kitchen table with the homeowner and tell them that's like, look, I'm not trying to pressure you into this, but the way the market is heading right now, if we don't get you pre-approved and like lock that in for you at the moment, like next week, this rate will probably be 1 to 2% higher.
Yeah, exactly. And for sales reps like yourself, because you were that technical sale, right? Like that
Mhm.
feels uncomfortable because it feels like a
Oh
hard
yeah.
close and out of character in some ways. So it was really hard for a lot of people, I think, to not only say that, but to have to push that onto homeowners, although it was very real.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely an uncomfortable time. And I think it's one of the things that may change, especially as we're looking at a post ITC world, which is a great kind of segue to, because I know, maybe a lot of people watching this may not be familiar with solar financing or may have seen it maybe through their own loan that they got. But I want to talk a little bit and just get your expert guidance for all the viewers. Like, since it's such a unique form of financing, you don't really find in other products or services or areas. Can you walk us through just how typical solar financing actually works?
Yeah, absolutely. And unique is the perfect word for it because unlike most like home improvement projects, because that's what this is, homeowners are able to claim a tax credit or were able to claim a tax credit for their solar system. And until recently, all solar loans were structured around this ITC or the tax credit. And typically, lenders quoted an initial monthly payment, assuming that homeowners will apply that tax credit to their loan within whatever given amount of time, say from 12 months or to 18 months, whatever the case may be for that product. And in order to keep those monthly payments the same for the life of the loan, the amount of that credit, that 30%, had to be applied to the loan and then thus determine that monthly payment for that homeowner. And, the reamortization or like readjustment of that monthly payment can definitely weigh a decision one way or another. And especially if there's only like some lenders had multiple opportunities to adjust that payment in that other way, but others had very few opportunities in the beginning of the loan. And I think that's why in recent years, you saw many solar salespeople frame solar payments as like this bill swap, right? They're trading the current utility bill for a comparable solar loan payment. But understanding how this loan works was super important because it directly affects that monthly payment and how they view their financing.
Totally. It was always such a confusing thing because, a lot of times that reamortization would be that we have to explain it to a homeowner, right? You have, all right, the first 12 months or 16 months or 18 months of your loan are this price. And then if you do this with the money, you could stay the same. Or like I worked in a state where we had additional incentives too. So we had that other, put in more money and now your payment goes down. I would be curious to even see like how many homeowners really even put that money back into it and kept that payment the same.
Not 100%. I can say that. And I think as years went on, it became less and less just with macroeconomics, right? Like money got tighter. Post-COVID world, cash was easier to obtain. And as the years went on, it wasn't the case. And so I think it was just a matter of that. And especially you don't know if you're going to get your full tax credit amount, right, in the first year. It's really hard to say just given individual tax situations.
And I think that was always a big confusing point because the financing and that reamortization, reapplication of funds makes a lot of homeowners kind of feel like they almost get a rebate from their solar tax credit when in reality it wasn't a rebate. So like homeowners would still have to come up with that money to be able to put it in because you weren't getting like if you had an $8,000 tax credit, you weren't getting an $8,000 refund. It's like, great, this is free money. Like you had to find that somewhere.
Yeah, and with such a, like you say, unique product like this, it's really hard sometimes to understand that. Like maybe you hear tax credit and money back and you're thinking, "Oh, I'm going on vacation or I'm going to pay
Hmm.
off that high interest credit card loan." So, again, if that technical detail of how their loan works because it's very solar unique, um plays a huge part in again how they view their finances if they're going to go on that vacation or pay off that high interest credit card debt or put it back into their solar loan. And then it's sort of like, oh, well, I don't want to do that, right? I want to finance my system and have it be this monthly payment without having to cash out this credit that I got for putting solar on my house.
And a lot of things that we're hitting here, I think ties in really well to what I want to talk about too, is that in a lot of homeowners' eyes, solar financing has kind of a bad name and a bad reputation in some cases. We've hit on a couple of the intricacies of it, but is there any other reason besides kind of what we've talked about that you think solar financing kind of has a bad name?
No, I really think a big part of it just comes down to confusion. You mentioned the word rebate, right? Like they're not sure if it's a rebate or a tax credit. They think simply that they're just getting money back from the government, not necessarily considering how they have to pay taxes or put in money, right, to get that credit back if there's overage. But I think on top of that, like every reamortization was differently. So you mentioned, you were in a house, you had over 3 options. All 3 of those options had different reamortization periods. So maybe it was just a lack of detail. That of course can maybe lead to surprises, but I think, simply like it's not an auto loan. It has a lot of moving parts, and sometimes that complexity can make it feel less trustworthy. Although inherently, like it's not untrustworthy if explained well. The dynamics and just detail maybe missed sometimes can make it seem that way.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. It's really in the explanation and making sure that the sales reps that are working with that are really taking the time to educate their homeowners and then making those wise decisions so they know how that works. Um, but so in terms of the loans and stuff that you've been in experience with, what are the most common terms that are utilized? I know I've seen a wide range of depending on the lender you work with, but what are kind of typical loan terms that people would see today?
Yeah, I think the most common options are like 10, 15, 20, 25 years is the most common. And more recently, like 30-year loans have been introduced into the mix. I feel like what it comes down to is like knowing the client's intentions in financing their system should be at the center of whatever product they get, right? They should often dictate what product they're utilizing. Like, for instance, longer terms, most common again, 25 years, that helps them keep that monthly payment as low as possible. And again, makes it more comparable to the utility bill that they're already paying. But other finance solutions may not be a good fit for someone who wants to pay off their system sooner and like avoid added costs like interest or dealer fees, stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you say the big word right at the end there, which is a perfect segue, dealer fees. And that's people who have gone through solar financing, know about solar financing. That is the big word. So talk to me a little bit about, explain for our viewers who may not know, what are dealer fees? How do they impact a loan and why are they viewed so negatively?
Yeah. So dealer fees are basically the cost installers pay to offer financing through any given lender. You can kind of think of it like when you're buying a car, the dealer gives you maybe different options for financing packages. They might cover the upfront cost to get you a lower monthly payment, but the cost at the end of the day is built into the total price of that car. And in the end, you're still paying for it. With solar, it's very similar. Like a zero dealer fee loan usually means the total project cost may be lower, but your interest rate is higher. So it's a trade-off, right? If the homeowner's priority is to match their solar loan payment with their utility bill, or like we call it a bill swap, then a lower interest rate, with a higher dealer fee might make more sense. But if their goal is to pay it off quickly and minimize interest, a no fee, higher APR might actually be the better fit just because of interest accrual over the 25-year, sometimes own life, right? The numbers just make it so that you're buying down that interest rate with a dealer fee. And then the catch is if you stretch those high interest rates, the no fee loans over the full term, you just end up paying much more in interest overall. So that's why the right structure just always depends on what's best for the homeowner's specific goals.
And I think one of the things that really sometimes leaves a sour taste in some people's mouth when it comes to financing is those dealer fees would get astronomical. I mean, I remember selling somewhere the dealer fees were 30% additionally, where like I would quote homeowners with financing and then I'd quote them if they just wanted to pay cash for the loan. And
Hmm.
yeah, they'd be like, wait, where is the difference? Like, how does this make any sense at all? And that I feel like that, in my experience, skyrocketed over a period of time. Did you see really like huge increases over a short period of time in that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I mean by what I mentioned earlier, the kind of the hardest part of that period that we lived through starting in Q4 of 2022. At that time, at least in my experience, the market average about was a 699 no fee. By the start of Q1 in 2023, you're at a 999. And that could mean, $50 of a difference in a monthly payment for the same cost system, right? So you could see how just like very quickly, people like you in homes were sort of like head on a swivel, like where is the rate and, what is the best option for the homeowner?
Yeah, it leaves a lot of confusion for homeowners. So it's a tough area to be in, but I think maybe something that in a post-tax credit world, we may actually simplify a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
So I wanted to get into that. Given what we've discussed, we know how solar financing kind of currently works. With your experience, what you've seen in it, what do you think the future of solar financing looks like?
Yeah, I think we're already seeing a push towards like more simple and transparent, maybe no dealer fee options, but finance options, period. Like homeowners want clean, straightforward loans, no hidden costs, no sudden increases in monthly payments, right? We've seen in big media sort of some homeowner complaints as far as confusion. Everything that I said today and explained can be really confusing. And I think as we prepare for the ITC changes, products without reamortization, so without those changing monthly payments, they're already on the market with really competitive rates. I think there's like probably no longer going to be this one size fits most product, like a 149 to 399 APR, right? I think financing for solar is going to get more localized. Credit unions, community banks, they're playing a bigger part, not just for the environmental win, but as an opportunity for their members, right? And that localized trust, I think, could really help solar financing mature beyond big fintech models. And for homeowners looking for whole home energy solutions, we may see them lean on HELOCs, right? There's a lot of equity built into homes right now. And maybe, like I said earlier, they don't have a lot of cash in a post-COVID world to kind of expend on home improvement things like an HVAC, a solar system, batteries, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. And I love the point you make about localized, because we've been seeing it and saying it so much with solar installers too. We've seen so many of the largest installation companies have gone out of business in recent years, and seen that a lot, big national players. So that more localized, regional feels like it's a different level of trust that may actually end up being a little bit beneficial for the industry.
I do think we're trending that way. It really feels like it. I think what we're noticing, you mentioned like some big name people going bankrupt. Solar is a local game. You can't just drop into any state and know what the AHJ rules are, what permits do you have to pull, what utility company are they using. That's an expertise.
Yeah, it's anybody who's tried to do it knows there's a problem. It's not easy to do. So, financing as a whole is going to change. Would you expect that same change to apply to like loan terms as well? You think those are going to stick out at like that 30-year mark, or should we see those maybe be closer to shorter term, almost feeling like auto loans?
I do think that we're going to start to have to get comfortable with that. And before COVID, even, we were selling these high APR loans with very low dealer fees easily, right? It wasn't a bill swap. I think we got really comfortable as an industry sort of pitching it that way. At the end of the day, again, these homeowners are paying for the utility bill, right? They have money that they can move around in that way, but it's going to change.
Yeah, I'm curious to see the change, because I think the simplification is probably going to end up being a little bit more beneficial. And to be honest, the less confusion for homeowners who are trying to make this decision. It's going to make it so that we can focus more in on like the true value behind solar, rather than what so many people have done, especially in financing, is where it's almost gimmicky trying to get the idea of like, well, you can put this amount of money and then lower the payment and get to a certain point. So you can kind of get away from that and really focus in on the investment details.
Totally. And I think just where local banks come into play, they're not going to want a 25-year loan. It doesn't maybe pencil as well for that kind of structured business. But being that that's the case, that straightforwardness is really what we need in solar right now. This is what it is. It's not variable. What I tell you and what is on this bank document for you is what you're going to expect and hope for in your solar installation. That there's that trust back at the table.
Well, Stosh, I know we could keep having this conversation forever. Thank you for the insight here. I'm sure we will link up and talk about more solar financing as we do see some changes going on in the market. So I appreciate your expertise and willing to be on here. Any last thoughts or anything that you want to leave the viewers with when it comes to solar, the future of solar or solar financing?
No, Ryan, I appreciate that you are putting this on the table to talk about, because it is definitely something that homeowners and, solar installers have front of mind as we move into 26.
Amazing.
So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And for everybody watching, thanks so much for tuning in. If you liked the video, found it helpful, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll catch you in the next one.